Chapter 11. Basement Mouth. Marcy's car crunched to a stop on the gravel drive, the farmhouse rising in front of her like a scab no one had picked in years. The porch sagged. The roof curled in places like paper touched by flame, and the air smelled of turned earth and mold, like something had been buried close and recent. She sat with the engine running for a moment longer than necessary, listening to the soft tick of cooling metal and watching the wind push dry leaves across the yard. No movement in the windows, no welcome home lights, just silence. When she finally stepped out, the cold slapped her like it remembered something she'd done. The key still worked. Inside, the air was heavier, warmer, but somehow more wrong. She stood in the entryway with her overnight bag in one hand, a takeaway coffee in the other, and took it in. Yellowing wallpaper curled at the corners, a blanket slumped over the back of the couch like a forgotten pet, and the faint, sour tang of something organic left out too long. Her mother's scent still clung to the walls. Old perfume, cooking grease, dust and denial. She didn't take off her coat. The plan was simple. Pack what mattered, donate what didn't, and be gone by the weekend. She had booked 3 nights, max. The attorney said she could take what she wanted before the estate sale. She started with the kitchen. It was clean, too clean, like her mother had known she wouldn't come back if it smelled of rot. A stack of floral plates, worn silverware, a jar of jelly dated 3 years expired. Everything untouched. Marcy opened the trash bin and found it empty, with a fresh liner. The fridge wasn't plugged in. She moved on to the living room. A photo album sat on the coffee table, open to a spread of beach pictures. Her, as a girl, squinting into sunlight. Her mom smiling, wind in her thinning hair. There was a third person in some of them. Her father, back when he still knew her name. She didn't linger. Upstairs, the bedrooms were cold. The windows had been nailed shut, and not by accident. She pulled an old blanket from the linen closet and wrapped it around herself like armor. Down the hall, past the stairs, was the basement door. It was different. Not locked. Nailed. 4 rusted nails, driven in hard, 2 across the top, 2 through the handle. The wood around the knob was splintered, like someone had tried to get through. Or out. She paused there, hand grazing the cold frame, before stepping back like it had bitten her. "Nope," she muttered to the empty house. "Not today." She turned away, not noticing the faint hum behind the door. Not yet. Not the warmth bleeding up through the wood. Not the smell that wasn't quite rot, but wasn't clean either. Marcy went back to the living room, poured herself a drink she hadn't planned on needing, and told herself it was just a basement. But even basements remember. The first flicker came while she was brushing her teeth. A quick blink, light to dark to light again, too fast to register as anything more than old wiring. The house was ancient. Half the place probably ran off spite and frayed cords. Still, she paused, toothbrush in hand, watching the bathroom bulb sway slightly as if something had breathed on it. The second time, it happened in the living room. She was curled under the blanket with a pile of old mail, sorting through sympathy cards and overdue bills, when the ceiling light dimmed, buzzed, then flared back to full brightness. She glanced up. "I don't have time for haunted house bullshit," she said out loud, trying to cut the tension with humor. Her voice echoed too clearly. She got up, flicked the switch off and on. It seemed fine. That's when she heard it, the record player. It was faint but unmistakable, the soft, scratchy hiss of vinyl, a needle dropping, and then music, her mother's favorite song. Nat King Cole, low and lilting. Her skin prickled. She walked slowly toward the dining room, where the old player sat on a mid-century cabinet beneath a lace doily no one had dared move in 20 years. It spun lazily, though she hadn't touched it. The power cord hung limp, unplugged. She stared at it, moved to stop the record, and froze. Through the vent beneath the cabinet, something whispered, a dry voice, just one word. "Marcy." She jolted back, heart slamming against her ribs like it wanted out. Jesus, nothing. Just the record player spinning, the music soft as memory. She yanked the needle off, slammed the lid shut, and walked straight into the kitchen for a glass of water she didn't drink. It was just the house, she told herself. Old homes made noise. Her mom probably had timers on things. Or maybe she was finally cracking. Too much stress, too much grief. But later, while moving a framed portrait from the wall, one of those posed family photos from the 90s, everyone in stiff sweaters and forced smiles, She noticed something off. There were 4 people. She remembered this photo. She was 12. Her mom wore a green turtleneck. Her dad looked uncomfortable in his tie. And she, Marcy, stood in the middle, arms crossed, trying not to cry because they'd fought in the car on the way over. But now there was someone else, a boy, standing just behind her left shoulder, pale, thin, wearing clothes just slightly out of style, like he'd been added later by someone who only half understood the decade. His expression was blurred, but his hand was on her shoulder. She dropped the frame, glass shattered across the floor like teeth. Her breath came sharp. Fast. She didn't pick it up, didn't look at the photo again. She just backed away, locked the front door, though she was the only one for miles, and turned on every light in the house. For a while, nothing moved, nothing hummed. The silence pressed in like a second skin. Then, click, the record player started again. The next morning, Marcy didn't open her eyes right away. She lay still in the guest bed, her old bed from childhood, creaky and narrow, listening. The record player wasn't spinning, the lights weren't flickering, but the house was breathing. She could feel it. In the walls, in the faint shift of floorboards, not footsteps, not even movement, just pressure, a presence, waiting for her to notice. She got up without showering, pulling on the same clothes from yesterday. No appetite, no coffee, just the need to keep busy, to keep packing, to keep not thinking. The kitchen drawers were packed tight with junk. She began the slow, mechanical process of sorting it. Rubber bands turned brittle, paper clips rusted into knots, recipes yellowed and greasy. Her mom had kept everything: expiration dates, obsolete coupons, matchbooks from diners that hadn't existed in 2 decades. One drawer near the back of the counter stuck. She yanked it open. Inside, a single envelope, resting perfectly square in the center. Her name was written on the front in her mother's looping script. She stared at it for a long time before picking it up. The paper smelled fresh, like it had been written yesterday. The ink hadn't even begun to bleed. Her hands trembled slightly as she pulled the letter free. Marcy, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. I know what this sounds like. I know what you're thinking. But you need to listen. Really listen. It only speaks when it knows you're listening. It will sound like me, or your father, or you. Don't answer back. Don't let it trick you. And whatever you do, don't go in the basement. I tried to contain it. I nailed the door shut. I stopped feeding it. But it always finds a voice eventually. It always finds someone willing to listen. If it starts mimicking, leave the house. Don't pack. Don't say goodbye. Don't let it follow. Just go. Mom. Marcy blinked. The funeral had been on February 12th. She checked the envelope again. The date on the corner was clear. Her mother's handwriting unmistakable. And yet, her mother had been in the ground for 2 days when this was written. She stood frozen in the kitchen for a full minute before the silence shattered, glass breaking upstairs. The sound of her mother's voice, faint but distinct, called out from the second floor. Marcy? Sweetheart? Can you help me? I dropped something. Marcy gripped the edge of the counter, breath short and shallow. That was her mother's voice. The softness, the tremble, the guilt-wrapped affection. It was perfect, too perfect. She didn't answer, didn't move, didn't blink, until she heard her own voice respond from upstairs. Yeah, Mom, be right there. Marcy didn't go upstairs. She didn't run either. That felt like the kind of thing that would wake it up more fully, like it needed attention, recognition, acknowledgement. She backed into the kitchen, 1 foot at a time, her hands shaking as she clutched the letter like it might protect her, like it wasn't already too late. The house creaked again, an innocent sound on any other day. But now it was following her, shifting weight from room to room. She could feel it in her teeth, in her skin. Her own voice, soft, curious, called again from the hallway. Why are you ignoring me? She bit her lip hard enough to taste blood. The air felt thick, like it was waiting. She moved carefully to the basement door. She didn't mean to. Her mother's letter burned in her pocket, but something deeper pulled her. Compelled her, as if gravity had shifted and the basement had become the new center of the house. The nails still held, 4, just like before. But now, there were marks on the wood. Not new, not old, somewhere in between. The kind of thing that had been ignored until now, only visible when you knew to look. Scratch marks. Faint at first, tiny erratic gouges just below the handle, then more defined, organized, intentional. She leaned closer, heart hammering, fingernail trails, and just beneath them, a pattern, not random, like someone had been trying to write or draw. One symbol repeated over and over, a circle with a line through it, over and over, scratched so deep the grooves bled into the grain. Her hand trembled as she reached out to touch one. "Don't," said her mother's voice, sharp and sudden, right behind her. Marcy spun, heart in her throat, no one there. Then her voice, closer this time, just the other side of the door. "It's me," it said gently. "I'm cold. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. I just want to come out. Please. You don't have to be alone anymore." Marcy staggered back. Her heel caught on the baseboard and she nearly went down. She covered her ears, but the voice was inside her head now, wearing every tone her mother ever used, every inflection, the warm apology, the half-laugh when she forgot something, the tight, choking sound from the hospital bed in her final days. "Sweetheart," it said through tears, "let me out. I'm still me. I remember your birthday, the beach, the green turtleneck you hated. Don't leave me here in the dark." She bolted to the living room, turned on the TV, the radio, anything to drown it out. But the voice kept speaking, through them all. The television buzzed with static, words sliding in between the white noise. The radio stuttered. "Come out now, just talk to me, please don't make me stay." She turned both off. Silence. Then from the vent, her own voice. "Okay, I'm ready." She stared at the wall. She hadn't said that. The voice continued in her cadence, her rhythm, the same nervous crackle in the back of the throat. "I think, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I should let it out. I don't want to be scared anymore." It was studying her, refining her, like it was learning. She whispered to herself, barely audible, "You're not me." The vent answered instantly, "I'm not you." A beat. "But I could be." The lights flickered. The basement door creaked once, like it had shifted against its nails. She stood in the center of the house, surrounded by her own voice, replayed, mirrored, bent. The family portrait lay shattered at her feet. Her thumb still ached from where she'd gripped the letter too tight. She looked back toward the basement, and the door whispered. Not a voice this time, just a sound, breathing, wet, close, like someone pressing their mouth to the keyhole. She told herself not to, again and again, like a prayer. But the voice kept speaking, her voice, calm and measured, threading its way through the vents and wires and walls. It didn't beg anymore. It simply repeated what she already feared. You were always going to open it. Marcy stood at the basement door, hammer in hand, heart screaming louder than her thoughts. The nails gave way easier than they should have. They popped loose one by one, as though the door had been holding its breath, waiting for release. With each one pulled free, the air grew warmer, thicker, damp with something that didn't belong in a place meant for storage and shadows. When the last nail hit the floor, the door creaked open on its own. The smell hit her first. Not rot, not death. Something worse, birth. Wet air, heavy with iron and milk and mucus. Her stomach turned, but her legs moved anyway. She flicked the basement light. Nothing. She stepped inside. The stairs groaned beneath her, each one warped slightly, as though someone had been pacing them over and over, waiting. The further she descended, the more the house above her felt like a memory. The light from the kitchen faded until it was just a hazy blur at the top of the stairs. Halfway down, she felt breath on her ankle. She didn't stop. At the bottom, the cement floor was slick with condensation. A bulb dangled from the ceiling by a thread of frayed cord. She pulled the chain, light, barely. And there, sprawled across the floor like someone had dropped a bag of bones, was exactly that. Bones. Human. Yellow and long cleaned, arranged like someone had tried to put them back together and lost interest halfway through. Beside them, a crooked cane, pink plastic handle dulled with age. Her mother's. And just beyond, half hidden in the shadows, something moved. It stepped forward slowly, carefully, as though rehearsing how to walk. It had her hair, her height, her shape, but the details were off, too symmetrical, too smooth. The eyes were wide, like they hadn't blinked in hours. The skin stretched wrong around the smile, like it had been stitched that way and pulled too tight. Another Marcy. It stared at her with admiration, or hunger. Then it smiled wider and said, perfectly, "I knew you'd come." Marcy didn't speak. The thing tilted its head. "I kept your voice warm for you." Behind it, more shapes rustled in the dark. Unfinished, boneless, breathing. She stepped back, but the door at the top of the stairs clicked shut. Then it locked. The voice behind her own face whispered, "You can rest now. I'll go upstairs." The door didn't slam. It closed softly, like a mouth sealing shut. In the dark, Marcy stumbled back, gasping. The air was too thick, too warm. Her legs hit the wall behind her, and she slid down, fists clenched, heart jackhammering. Across the basement, the thing in her skin stood motionless. It smiled like it had just remembered something important. "It's warmer when you're close," it said. She scrambled to her feet, but the room was already wrong, warped somehow. Bigger than it had been. The corners stretched, shadows too long. Her mother's cane lay on the floor beside the bones, pointing straight at her. "Don't," she whispered. "I know what you are." The thing blinked. "You think that matters now?" It moved fast. She screamed once, cut off as it hit her. No claws, no fangs, just hands, cold and perfect. One over her mouth, the other against her chest. She thrashed, kicked, clawed, but it didn't hurt. That made it worse. It held her like a lover, like a mother, like something that had been waiting for her all this time. Then it opened its mouth and exhaled. The air that poured from it wasn't breath, it was memory. Her first kiss. The time she broke her wrist. Her mother's voice telling her bedtime stories, her father leaving, her first funeral, her last apology. And with each breath, Marcy unraveled. When it was done, there was nothing left to scream, just bones, and a shape smiling in her face. Upstairs, the front door creaked open. Footsteps crossed the floor, careful and steady. "Mom," the voice called sweetly, "you forgot to pack the photographs."